FDR and the Great Depression. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president in 1932. He immediately embarked on an ambitious plan to get the country out of the Great Depression. Roosevelt's life and long career. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, fifth cousin of former President Teddy Roosevelt, was raised amid privilege in Hyde Park, New York. He attended Harvard University, was elected to New York State Senate in 1910, and served as Assistant Secretary of the Navy during the First World War. From 1929 to 1932, he served as governor of New York. Known as FDR, Roosevelt was elected President of the United States in 1932, 1936, 1940, and 1944. So as you guys can see, he served 4 terms. Typically, presidents only can serve 2 terms. He ended up serving 4 terms or 16 years. He served as the nation's 32nd president from March 4th, 1933 to his death in 1945. So think about that. If he was reelected 3 times or elected 4 times to be the leader of our nation, how well did people like him? I think he was pretty well liked. At age 39, Roosevelt contracted polio. So polio is a virus, and it affects your spinal cord and causes paralysis of your limbs and your legs. So he lost the use of his legs for the rest of his life because of polio, though the public was largely unaware of his disability. I included a video that shows how he hid his disability so well that a lot of people really did not know that he did not have use of his legs. In private, he moved around by wheelchair. In public, supported by steel leg braces and assistance, he could walk short distances. His life experiences forged a man whose easygoing mannered bellied an interior toughness. So it seems like FDR was a people's person. He was extremely kind and empathetic and very open, yet he had that toughness about him that made him a really great leader. Roosevelt and the New Deal. In his 1932 run for the presidency, Roosevelt asserted that he would help the forgotten man at the bottom of the economic pyramid and pledged himself a New Deal for the American people. So think about that. The bottom of the economic pyramid, so that would be poor people, and the forgotten man at the bottom of the economic people would be those poor people that are just kind of stagnant in the United States and they're unable to move up financially in our country. So he wanted to go to help those people and all help all Americans. In his first inaugural address, saying the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, he sought to reassure the public amid the anxieties of the Great Depression. So as you guys learned last lesson, the Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in U.S. history. It lasted more than a year. The stock market crashed. 5,000 banks went out of business. It was just really bad. People were out of work. They were scraping by. Nobody really had any money. It was pretty bad. As president, he championed the series of federal legislative initiatives known as the New Deal. The New Deal was not a blueprint for action, but was instead animated by a spirit, as Roosevelt said, of bold, persistent experimentation, in which he would take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it, frankly, and then try another. So his approach is different compared to other politicians and other presidents because he was very open with the people. He blatantly said he didn't know how to fix the economy, so he was going to do a trial and error method. He didn't go in front of everyone and say, this is how we fix the economy, this is how you get your money back. He didn't do that, and I think a lot of people respected that. On March 12, 1933, Roosevelt delivered his first live radio fireside chats. In the first chat, he spoke about the banking crisis and explained the actions he and Congress had taken to address it. During his presidency, he delivered 30 fireside chats, explaining to the public in reassuring tones and plain-spoken language his New Deal policies and the Second World War through the medium of a radio. So first of all, we talked about the 1920s culture in America. The radio was the big thing. That was the equivalent of having a TV right now. So what FDR did to connect more to the American people is he held these fireside chats on the radio and was extremely transparent and open with the American people, describing the path he and Congress were taking to improve the economy and kind of all what was happening in the White House. He was very, very transparent with the people. So everyone kind of had an idea what was going on. They were reassured. He wasn't really hiding anything from them. He just kind of laid everything out in his chats. And people could listen to this and take that information and get that comfort during this extremely hard time. And right below there, you could see a picture of Roosevelt during one of his fireside chats. In an ill-fated move in 1937, President Roosevelt sought to pack the United States Supreme Court, which had ruled against many of his programs, with justices who would be more favorable to the New Deal. His court packing plan called for adding an additional justice to the court for every justice over the age of 70. The measure was widely denounced by the public and failed in Congress. So what he wanted to do is he wanted to assess Congress, and what he wanted to do was identify everyone that was the age of 70 or older. And out of those people, for every one of those people, he wanted to add an extra person in there. So think about why he would want to do that. Why 70 and older? What would that have done? Although the New Deal did not ultimately succeed in lifting the United States out of the Great Depression, the United States mobilization for World War II revived the economy during the late 1930s and 1940s. So take a minute and think about these questions. Do you think Roosevelt's experience with polio changed his personality and politics? If so, how? How did do you think the disease gave him a new outlook on things? How would you characterize Roosevelt's approach to the Great Depression? So we did talk about how he used kind of that trial and error method. So what do you think about that? Why do you think the fireside chats were so effective as a tool for spreading public awareness for Roosevelt's policies? How were those beneficial to letting people know what was going on? And why did Roosevelt attempt to pack the Supreme Court? How might American politics be different if he succeeded? So remember, we talked about packing the Supreme Court. That's taking every person 70 and older and then adding another person in to match the number of those people. That was shut down immediately. And then think about today, how might politics be different if that was the case? If everyone over 70 then somebody else got added into the Supreme Court. So think about those things. Post your questions or post your answers on Google Classroom or in Can. And I will see you guys later.